Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has fined First Bank of Nigeria Holdings and United Bank for Africa a sum of 1.9 billion naira for failing to comply with the Apex Bank's directive to fully remit all their federal government deficits to the Treasury Single Account, that's the TSA. That's according to This Day Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Financial Reporting Council has requested that the Central Bank of Nigeria and Economic Financial Crimes Commission investigate Stanbic IBTC and KPMG for the financial misstatements. The council further suspended the registration of 4 directors of Stanbic IBTC and its audit engagement partner, KPMG. And we're back on BTVA's Business Nigeria. Adegboyega Olatunde, BTVA's head of research, now joins me to look at those numbers. Adegboyega, what exactly were your first reactions to Dangote Cement's numbers? Maybe you could break it down for us.
Okay, now, Tunji, the first thing I saw was that you're actually seeing a greater contribution in terms of volumes of contribution from outside Nigeria. Total revenues contributed was about 70 billion. What we've done in this analysis is actually to break it down so that you can actually see the change in Africa, which is Nigeria, Senegal, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and other places, and to analyze the change in Nigeria. Now, what you see is overall revenues grew in all of Africa, but revenues were fairly stagnant in Nigeria. Operating profit also grew in all of Africa, but they were still fairly stagnant in Nigeria. Now, the major difference you had was that operating profit grew substantially, PBT grew substantially in Nigeria. Now, that was largely due to a net finance cost of about 26 billion thereabout that came in, but that was still mitigated by, against the overall group, revenues just grew marginally by about 8.35%.
So basically what you're saying is that the market in Africa, the market in Nigeria is somewhat fierce. So it's somewhat fierce, and yes, he's getting a lot of competition, yes, but there's more room to grow in Africa. Yes.
Now, what we've actually also done is to analyze Nigeria's contribution to the entire group. Now, what this basically shows is that revenues, as of last year, Nigeria, in terms of profitability, in terms of top-line revenues, was contributing about 96%. Now, that has dropped to about 81%. So you're actually seeing a greater contribution
from Africa.
Yes, from Africa. However, profitability-wise, Nigeria still accounts for a key chunk. The reason why you're seeing 113% is simply because basically that implies that Nigeria contributed more and some of the units outside Africa did not contribute or contributed losses, and those losses were mitigated by the overall contribution of Nigeria. So that's what you're seeing for now, that it is contributing significant revenues outside Africa, outside Nigeria is contributing significant revenues, but profitability-wise, not so much.
But doesn't it look like you have a sure market in Nigeria and you're being distracted by the markets in Africa? I mean, the markets in Africa is growing significantly, but you still see that Nigeria still gives the chunk. So don't you think what we should be doing is, while you're expanding, try to consolidate on Nigeria?
Well, the general notion is you expect at a point that Nigeria as a market will probably plateau.
Yeah.
Expansion-wise. You know, Nigeria, you expect that as a market, Nigeria, at some point, capacity-wise, either demand-wise or capacity-wise, would plateau. So the strategy is, and I'm almost certain that if you do ask people in Dangote Group, they'll probably tell you, is there are other countries in Africa whose cement consumption is not as much as Nigeria, whose cement capacity in terms of production is also not as Nigeria. So that's where the growth probably is going forward. Now, because you've had a situation where Nigeria's still contribution a large proportion, it basically shows you at some point it's likely going to plateau.
Yeah. Except, of course, we do something about the housing deficit.
There's a housing deficit of about 17 billion, but all of that is still tied to expenditure on infrastructure, your overall economy booming. It is expected that when your economy booms, cement and steel consumption obviously increase.
All right, let's go to Seplat now. I'm looking at Seplat's numbers. 9 months 2015.
Down.
We saw that revenue was about 83 billion. We saw that operating profit 22 billion. Profit before tax was 13 billion. And the EPS earnings per share is 24 naira 54 kobo. That looks very good if you look at it from this column. But then when you go to the change column, you start to see that it actually dipped significantly. But you see that Revenue went down 9.79%.
Yeah.
Operating profits went down a whole 42.57%. PBT down 61%.
Yeah.
I mean, what exactly is happening with Seplat? Because at some point it looked like a wonder stock on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
You know, unfortunately, Seplat is the only, well, maybe with Oando in contribution with, in combination with Oando. Seplat is a purely upstream
business.
Play. Yeah. So they are actually hit more by volatility in crude oil prices. So if crude oil prices drop from 60 to 40, that's a third in value. Do you understand? So if try and imagine that at every barrel of crude you sell at 60 naira and you make as much as, let's say, $20. Now, the moment that 60 naira drops to 40 naira, obviously it's going to affect your profitability. And that's what we're seeing in Seplat. However, we've also seen certain numbers, particularly in Q3. What we've done is to analyze 9 months, but the Q3 numbers actually came out quite strong. There were significant improvements in gas sales. Gas sales almost doubled. We saw a significant increase of about 45% from Q3 to the half year in terms of revenues, actually.
But one of the things I've noticed about Seplat, though, they seem to be very efficient. Outside the fact that they're very ambitious, they seem to be very efficient in the way they manage their operations. Because significantly, even with the global crude oil prices, the volatility in the market, all the issues you're seeing, I mean, the losses aren't as you expect.
True. I'm sorry I have to reference this, but I don't think anything can get as bad as what we saw with Oando on Friday. They have managed to rein in their administrative expenses. You know, we checked that on our discussions on Friday were based on what were administrative expenses and cost efficiencies. And what you've seen is their own numbers were so far the best in the industry. It actually improved year on year by about 4.5%. You know, whereas what we saw was a decline of about 103% in Oando, 45% in FO, 18% in mobile. But they actually had an improvement. Their administrative costs actually went down.
So basically, Seplat is still where you want to put your money in because it looks strong on the long term.
Yes, on the long term, yes.
Thank you very much for that, Adegboyega. We will continue to follow those stories. That is all we have for the show today. We are Btva, and what we do is premium financial and business news analysis. Thanks for watching Business Nigeria. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Btva Newsroom or share your thoughts by hashtagging Business Nigeria. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Tunji Andrews. Now, see you tomorrow. Till then, stay safe.